Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Give one more minute before we get started. Somebody give me a thumbs up or you can hear me. Make sure my audio is good. Are we good to go?
I can hear you just fine.
Very good. All righty. I think the clock says it's time to get started. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the latest edition of Minority Real Estate Millionaires. I am your host with the most, Mr. Ray. And today we're going to be talking about wealth protection, baby. Wealth protection. How do you protect that wealth once you get it? It's one thing to get it, but it's another thing to hang on to it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we protect it? Ground rules are as usual. Everybody's going to be muted during the call. I'm going to be covering some good information today. Make sure you write down your questions as you go along so I can come back and try to answer them. Or Johnny's on the line today. Feel free to text and he'll try to answer those questions for you that he's aware of. Also, I always want your feedback. I need your feedback. Yes, Black lives still matter. I was reading something the other day, and this was, I've heard about it before, but I read up on it a little bit more. It's called redlining. And redlining was a maneuver that was used by the people in power, the Caucasian brothers. They would systematically keep Blacks, Latinos, and other minorities from getting access to credit in certain areas. Let's say if you lived on the northeast side of Oklahoma City, they wouldn't approve credit. They would refuse to insure the properties in certain areas. They would actually mark the applications that either Negro or something to identify that these were Black applicants. And it was totally against the law. There were laws in place that forbid that to happen, yet they still did it. And in some cases, it's still happening today. And so, again, Black lives matter. And you need to make sure that you understand that ownership of property, of real estate, is the best way for you to improve your lifestyle, your living, and also your whole legacy as far as what you're going to be able to leave your children. Tyler Perry made it very clear. He said, ownership changes everything, baby. You're not going to make an impact renting for the rest of your life, making the landlord rich. You need to be the landlord. You need to be the one that owns the property because it changes everything. Because now you get to build some net worth. Now you get to build some cash flow. You're building ownership, equity. You are a productive member of the society. Ownership, baby, that's what you're looking for. You want to own assets. Remember I taught you that? Own assets, reduce expenses. All right, so our agenda for today, we've been talking about the 4 stages of wealth. We talked about wealth education, where you need to make sure that you're spending time understanding the mechanics, the ideas, the strategies behind creating wealth. We also talked about accumulation. In this stage, you're buying property as much as you can, as many as you can, as much as the banks will allow you. You want to load up on properties during this phase. And today we're going to talk about, once you've accumulated this wealth, how do you make sure you hang on to it? How do you make sure that you can keep it? And then next week we'll talk about wealth distribution. At that point, you've attained wealth, you've gotten older. Now, how do you make sure that that legacy is passed down, that it's distributed well to your heirs? And some of what we're going to talk about today is, in fact, setting the stage for the distribution of wealth. So I got a disclaimer. I got to put this in because some of the things I'm going to talk about today, you need to know where I'm speaking from, right? So first of all, I am not an attorney of law. I wanted to be. I almost, when I got my MBA, they said, hey, you can throw a JD on there, but I didn't do it. So there you go. I'm a wannabe attorney, but I'm not Johnny Cochran. I'm not a certified financial planner, although I do know how to do some things around finances. I've learned them on my own, but I'm not certified in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a financial advisor. Huh? No, I'm not any of that, right? I'm not a retirement planner. Well, we're Mr. Ray. Well, then who are you? Why are you putting this disclaimer out here? We don't know who you are. Well, first of all, let me say, the things that you're going to see and hear today from me, I need you to make sure that you check with your professionals, the lawyers, the certified planners, the financial advisor, retirement planner, before you make any of the changes that I may or may not suggest to you. But you still haven't told us who you are, Mr. Ray. Who are you? Well, according to my wife, I am a Mr. Know-It-All. She always say, you think you know everything. Yeah. Well, I do know a little bit about everything, but I want you to know I am not any of these guys, but I am a Mr. Know-It-All. Thank you for that, Lila. All right, quick review. You know, the things that I'm talking about are mostly around finances, but I got to go back and I got to pull this slide out of my education series and say, I'm really about helping you become a better all-around person. I want the total package. I want you excellent and mentally. I want you excellent physically. I want you excellent spiritually and emotionally so that you can enjoy your bounty, that you can enjoy when you get all this wealth. I want you to be that whole person. So while I'm focusing on the financial, you got to make sure that you're doing the other things. I wish I had time to go through some of these others, but I'm focused on the financial piece. Call me up if you need some suggestions or you have some questions about some of the others. Again, I'll be more than happy to give you my opinion. So you heard the old saying, there's two things sure in life, baby, and that's death and taxes. And so I need to talk about whenever we start talking about wealth protection, the first thing we need to talk about is probate. Now, this is a term that when most people hear it, what is that? Probate. They don't have any idea what probate is. Well, let me just instruct you and enlighten you and educate you on what probate is. Probate is a legal process proving the will and determining heirs. So if you have a will, probate is the process by which they prove that will and they determine who's the heirs of the property of the one that's deceased. So the court's going to validate the will. They're going to authorize an executor to distribute the assets to the beneficiaries as they have been instructed in the will, as well as pay the creditors and taxes that the state may owe. All right, so I said a lot there, but basically they're going to come in. If you don't have a Mr. Whitley, Mr. Ray, you don't have a will? No. Well, we're going to need to go to the courts, and they're going to determine what's going to happen to your property. Well, I want mama to have this, or I want sister. No, we're not doing none of that because you didn't have a will. Oh, really? Nobody told me. Well, sorry about that, but the state will come in and will take ownership of your property and determine who gets your stuff. So what's the goal, baby? The goal is you want to avoid probate at all costs. Let's avoid probate because I want to determine, I want to say what happens at my demise, right? Have you ever, and I'm sure some of you have, if a family member dies in your family, most of the time we don't have wills, we don't have estates, we don't have trust, we don't have any of that. And so what happens? Well, Big Mama said I could have the car, and no, somebody said no, I get the clothes, and that bank account, no, 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 no. If you don't have it written down, if it's not validated by the courts, it's not legal. So now you got to go through the whole process of figuring out this thing around probate. But how can we avoid probate, Mr. Ray? I don't even want to go through that. That doesn't even sound good to me. I'm glad you asked. There are some ways to avoid it, and that's our goal. When you talk about protecting your assets, protecting your wealth, this is where you start right here. You don't want the court to determine who gets your stuff, right? You want to determine it. The court determines what creditors get paid. The court determines which assets are sold and which assets satisfy the taxes and debt that the estate may owe. The court will name an administrator. Most likely, if there's a spouse or an adult child, they will name that person's to be responsible for helping execute the estate. Most of the time, this process can take 6 months to a year. And during that time, guess what? Lawyers are involved. They got to be paid. People got to go out and they got to appraise property to see how much it is. That's going to cost you money. I mean, it's just so many things along the way get messed up, all because you didn't take the time to sit down and to write a will. How do you avoid it? First of all, if your estate in the state of Oklahoma is worth less than $50,000, you don't have to worry about going to probate. And so a lot of people never have to worry about probate. The deal's less than $50,000, don't worry about it. But if you're over $200,000, the state's going to get involved. And in between there, they could, they couldn't. The laws are kind of here and there, but we know less than 50K, you don't have to worry about probate. Assets that are automatically transferred at the death of the owner. And I'm going to show you here in a minute that as you set up contingencies, as you set up tenancy in commons, as you make sure all spouses are on all the property that you own, cars, houses, this and that, if there's a beneficiary or something that's located on the property that you have, it'll automatically transfer based on that beneficiary notice. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Anytime you have joint tenancy, whenever I buy property in Juice Properties, right? That's my LLC, right? But I have a trust that sits on top of that LLC that will, if I am demised, if I die, that Juice Property goes away and everything rolls up into the trust. And the trust says, this is what happens to all my property. Accounts with beneficiaries designated. Let's say you have a retirement account and the beneficiary is your wife. Well, that's not going to have to go through probate. It's going to automatically transfer to you. So if you have beneficiary designates on your checking account, on your savings accounts, on your retirement account, those won't be probated if the beneficiary is assigned and if it's designated in those documents. And then there are some accounts that people set up, they have what they call transfer on death. That means I own it, but when I die, I want you to transfer it to so-and-so. So you can put those type things in place to avoid probate. And then there's a living trust. Anything that's in a living trust, the court will recognize that living trust and say that living trust takes care of what's just like a will. It tells you what's going to happen, how the funds are to be distributed, who's to get paid, and whatnot. So those are some of the ways. They're not all of the ways. These are just some of the ways that I know that you can avoid probate. Again, see my disclaimer, you need to see a financial planner or an attorney in order to make sure that your particular estate is is going to be executed the way that you want it done, right? I can help you and guide you, but you're going to have some legal documentation that's going to need to be put in place. Let's talk about insurance, because this is one of the major ways that you protect your wealth, right? Insurance is there in case something happens. And usually when something happens, you don't have the money to pay for it. Insurance is paid on a monthly or annual basis to cover the risk of something happening, right? And so we all have insurance, right? And so there's term life versus whole life. I don't like whole life. Again, I'm just a guy here saying term life for most people is the best thing to do. And so if you got $500,000 policy term life, and let's say I have one, Lila is my beneficiary. When I die, she gets $500,000 free and clear, no taxes, directly from the company that I bought that term life insurance from. Whole life is something that has more of a cash value and it builds up over years. There's a lot of things I don't like about whole life. They sold them to our people way back when. A lot of shysters came in selling a bunch of whole life policies that wasn't even worth the paper that they were printed on. So in some cases, whole life might be good. For most cases, all you need is term life insurance. Disability insurance, you should have disability insurance. Disability insurance protects you if and when you become incapacitated. You can no longer work, you can no longer fend for yourself. Disability insurance comes in and it'll pay you so much of your salary, or it'll pay you so much of a lump sum in case you are incapacitated. Health insurance, we all know what that is. For the most part, you should have health insurance that protects you in case you get ill. You can go to the doctor, and when you get that $200,000 bill, well, if you got insurance, it may only be $20,000, right? So you got to have and make sure that you have good health insurance, because things do happen. Automobile insurance. You have insurance to protect your assets, your car, in case you're in an accident. Also protects the other person in case you do something negligent, right? So we all have automobile insurance, and we should make sure that's up to date. In fact, it is a state law that you must have automobile insurance on a property in the state, in a vehicle in the state of Oklahoma. Homeowners insurance. This protects you in case your home is destroyed with fire, flood, hail, whatever. This protects your home. And most banks, if they give you a mortgage on your company, they're going to require that you have homeowners insurance on that property. And then investment property insurance. That's the insurance, much like homeowners, but different. It protects you from liability in case you get sued, in case something happens on your property. That insurance will kick in and cover you, right? You have comprehensive, which covers the value of the property, and you have liability that covers you in case something happens and you get sued in a lawsuit. Tenant slips and fall, you didn't fix the pipes when you're supposed to. Your insurance should cover you if you wasn't negligent. All right, let's talk about LLCs, another way that you protect your wealth. So we talked about avoiding probate. We talked about you got to have insurance. That way it protects you in case something happens. But another way that you can protect your wealth is to use this thing that we call an LLC, and that's simply a limited liability corporation. And so what a LLC does for you is that it protects your personal assets from these lawsuits and these creditors that may sue you during the course of your business, right? So that means they can't get your personal house, they can't get to your checking account, they can't get your car, they can't do any of that, because if you're holding title in the LLC is the only entity that they can sue. They cannot pierce the veil, so to speak, and come and get you through that, because you have limited liability, as it says. Also, there are certain tax advantages that I like about LLCs, and that is the income expenses pass through to your personal. So everything that happens in the business, let's say if you make money, if you make $20,000 in your real estate business, that $20,000 is added to income on your taxes, whether it's a 1040, 1041, whatever you use, right? So it's just a complete pass-through. Let's say you have a loss. And many years when I first started in real estate, man, I loved it because I was showing a loss because I was fixing up these properties and I was spending all this money and I could write off every dime. In some cases, 30, 40, $50,000 is what I was carrying over as a loss to my income, so that if I had $100,000 income, that $30,000 loss would come off of that, and therefore I only owe taxes on $70,000. And then there's management flexibility. When you own an LLC, when your properties are held in an LLC, you get to operate your business the way you want. Nobody tells you how to manage your business. You get to manage that business how you want to. And then there's profit flexibility. I get to determine when and how I get paid because I'm the owner of the property. So those are the advantages. Those are the things that, for me, when you got real estate, it's very, very important after you get, when you get one or two properties, it's okay to have those in your personal names. But once you get 4 or 5 properties, I think the best thing for most of us is to get an LLC so we can protect our personal assets, and also we can get those tax benefits. Wealth protections, final thoughts. I've been through a lot here, and I want to give you guys and individuals an opportunity to give me some questions here in a minute, but here's some final thoughts. When I think about wealth protection, we are protecting our wealth so that we can pass it down to our heirs, right? We get insurance, we avoid probate, we do all the things we're supposed to do, right? And so my final thoughts is some final strategies. These are the things that you need to make sure that you do from the standpoint of protecting your wealth once you have accumulated it, right? So title all your assets. When I say title them, if you got a spouse, make sure there's tenants in common. Make sure that that everything is titled. In case something happens to one, the other automatically gets it. Make sure all your stuff is titled properly. Make sure you got all your insurances in place, right? Don't let anything lapse. Stay on top of that, because the moment you lapse, that's the moment that something happens, and you don't want to get caught without insurance. Remember, if you got small estates, don't worry about it. You should be thinking about revocable and irrevocable family trust, right? I'm not going to get into all that, but I have a living trust. It is revocable. I own it. I run it. I do everything in it. When I demise, everything is going to happen exactly how I have it spelled out in my family trust. Retirement accounts. Make sure that you have the right beneficiaries. Make sure you understand the differences between taxes and non-taxable accounts. Those are all things that we don't have time to go through. See your local specialist. And then you want to minimize taxes. There's two things. There's tax avoidance and tax evasion. You don't want to do tax evasion, baby. They send you to jail for that. But you can avoid taxes. Your goal is to minimize taxes, not to evade them. You should report your income, report your expenses, do what you're supposed to do, because they will take you to jail for tax evasion. Ask a bunch of rich folk. They will come get you. All right, so with that, we are done. We're going to open it up to questions. What are your questions?
Hey, Mr. Ray.
Yes.
I was wondering, you was talking about your family trust. Have you ever heard a limited family partnership? If so, what are your thoughts on that?
I have no experience with that at all.
So why did
That's
you
something you'd have to kind of look up on your own.
Why did you choose a trust?
Because for me, a trust really wrapped up. I mean, and really, when you get to where I am, when you got a lot of property like that, and so what a trust does is basically it goes through everything that you own and everything that's in your estate and determine what's going to happen at your demise, right? A will could do the same thing, right? But a trust is so much tighter. It can't be challenged. I've never seen a trust that's really been challenged, except for maybe an ex-wife thought that she was defrauded or something like that. But for the most part, the trust, it costs more. Now let me be clear. It costs more to do a trust, but at the end of the day, for me, I feel more secure with all the property, with all the funds that I have available. I wanted to make sure that that everything went according to my will, and the trust allows me to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Wealth protection, baby.
Hey, real quick, twofold question for an LLC. How many properties do you think that you should have, or when should you get an LLC? Just to clarify on that, and also, if it protects you from someone coming after your personal assets, what can they technically get out of the LLC? Meaning, like, if you have 3 or 4 properties, can they take those from you?
Yes. Okay. So the first question. Remind me again. I got short attention span. What'd you say, Don? No, I'm sorry.
You good. The first question was when should you get an LLC?
Oh, okay.
You get 1 property, 2, 3, 5?
You know, some people get it when they first get their first property because they just want to shield that. And so after I got 5 properties, anywhere, I'll just say 3 to 5, whatever you're comfortable with. Once you got 5, at least you should at least have a LLC at that point. And what was your other question?
The other question was basically, so let's just say, since it protects me from them coming after my personal property, if you have 5 rental properties or something of that sort, can they go after those properties, or
yes?
Where does it really protect you at?
Those properties they can go after, but they can't go after anything else.
Got it.
What else?
Mr. Ray.
Yes, sir.
I got a question now. On the LLC, when you have the properties that you say, if you have a new property, you're wanting to roll that into your LLC, how do you still put it in your name, or do you put it as the name of your LLC on a deed, or how does that? Or can
all of my properties are deeded to my LLC. That's the only way that you can make sure that it's in the LLC. Now, some people say, well, if I put it in the LLC, I'll change it out of my name, the bank might call the loan. They might, but I've never seen a bank call any of my loans for putting it in the LLC.
Okay.
Because you are changing the deed to the property from your personal to the LLC.
Okay.
So that leads me to a question. So you're saying when you purchase the home, you're putting it in your personal name, but then you transfer.
Should, if you have the LLC, you should go ahead and just put it in the LLC.
Gotcha. Okay.
But if you bought it in your personal name, once you get the LLC, you want to get it a quick claim deed over to the LLC. What else?
I have a question. It's Laura.
Yes.
When you get the LLC, do you also need a EIN from the IRS?
Yes. The LLC will have its own EIN. And so, yeah, you'll have to apply for EIN. Good questions. Y'all got some good questions. Keep them coming.
Man, it's a lot of stuff to remember, man. I'm gonna have to retain your services, boss.
Well, you know, I am available for a fee. No, I'm just kidding.
Always selling yourself, my God.
I mean, I'm going to post this so you can go back at your leisure. You can stop it. You can do whatever you need to do, and then call the proper authorities. Say, hey, that Mr. Ray told me I need a trust. What's that all about? And so, yes, I would say that you guys need to really think through some of these things. You know, I was thinking also, another thing that's around wealth protection. You know, who has access to your passwords? What happens to you? If something happens to you, does your wife or anybody have your passwords to your bank accounts, to your phone, to your retirement account, all that? I'm wondering, what if something happens to you? It'll be a complete mess. People trying to figure out what's going on with your stuff. You know, we all had this happen. Well, we don't know where daddy hid stuff. We don't know where mama put stuff. Put that stuff in a folder, a container, or something somewhere, and let somebody know where it is so that you can help with the transition. I know that we ain't gonna die. We ain't gotta. Oh yes, you are. You hear what I said earlier? Death and taxes. Everybody gonna get in on that, baby. So just make sure that you help facilitate a smooth transition in case of your untimely demise. And we all got to go there, baby. Death and taxes. Any other questions for Mr. Know-It-All? All right. Well, it is getting close to that time. Hope you guys are learning some things again. These are things I was never taught. Nobody ever taught me. Johnny Whitfield will probably remember I had this conversation with him around trust and, you know, and making sure that everything passes smoothly to your heirs. And Johnny came back and said, man, I really appreciate you sharing that with me. And this was early on. So I'm sharing the same thing with you guys. Make sure that you got all your bases covered. I mean, buying real estate, you know, renting real estate, all that's good. Making money is good. Make sure you got your estate planning taken care of. All right. It's very important.
Yeah. Hey Ray, let me speak on that from a testimony, right? Reverend Real Estate. You know what Ray shared with you guys today. I would say it was liberating. It was freeing. You know, when you ask yourself, you know, what is it worth to you? I mean, I remember the question he asked me was, if you died tomorrow, would your family be all right? And I said, yeah, they'd be fine, based on what I thought. And we start talking through it. And when you start laying things out, I said, is that what you want to happen? How would you want this to happen? And as we went through the conversation, it was obvious I didn't really have a good plan in place, right? And so, you know, just like we talk about with our business, it's important to make sure you solidify a plan that you feel comfortable with. And that's why I said it's liberating from the aspect that I know I die today. I know that I laid out a plan that I believe will fulfill my dreams of my family. And Ray touched on, you know, there's difference between wills and estates. I think everyone has to kind of have that conversation. You know, most lawyers will consult you initially for free and give you what the differences are to let you understand what's all included and what's all encompassing. I think it all depends on kind of where you're at in life and what all that you've acquired. And really, what do you want? You know, I have multiple kids, and so I wanted to make sure I was clear on how this would be designated. And I mean, it allowed us to talk about things that I probably never would have ever talked about, you know, with my wife and other things. And so I just would advise everyone at some point sit down and have that conversation. Not just for you, but I say share it with your family, because Ray and I talked about our own family experiences. So much has been lost because we didn't do the right things while we were here, right? It's the one guarantee we know we're going to have, and that's die. But yet we do very little preparation for it. And so that's my testimony to that. And the other piece around the LLCs and whatnot, guys, it's less than about $100, right? If you're serious about having a business, don't play around with it, right? Just make the investment and move forward, you know, and that way you don't have to worry about it. It's not a large task. It's not, you know, a large purchase in the scheme of what you're trying to acquire and grow in your business. So thanks for that, Ray. Thought I'd chime that in, man.
Appreciate that, Whitfield. Appreciate that.
Since we're sharing testimony, I figured I'd share one too. This is Darren again. Since I started this, money management just wasn't a strong suit. I always suck at saying no, and it always put me in a bad financial state. And so using these tactics, I just did a little bit, and I was able to pay off all my credit cards except one within a year. And so using these models, and so I lost a lot of friends and family members, you know, by saying no to them. I got a lot of hate mail, but my families are in a better position. And so now I understand that I can't build wealth with so much debt. So I just want to thank you again, Mr. Ray, for letting me straggle along.
All right, all right. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. This is real life, baby. This is real life. We're talking about things our parents. I was thinking about this. My parents never even finished high school. How were they ever going to teach me some of this, right? I mean, there was no way. Their parents didn't teach them. They had no access to even understand these things. And so we have at our fingertips, I mean, unlimited information, access. I mean, and then you got people that are willing to share and tell you. So that's my whole mission and purpose of life here. I'm building a legacy of people that's going to be able to take the information that I'm sharing and share it with their kids, sharing with others, so that we can change this thing, change the whole conversation. And now that you know better, you can start doing better. So that's what we're doing. We're making disciples, people. We're teaching them. That's what it's about. All right, I'm about to call Reverend Real Estate in. We gotta shut this down before we get Reverend Real Estate in the house. All right. Any more questions? Going. All right. Next week, we're going to talk about wealth distribution. Huh? How do you give it away? How do you make sure it gets to the right people? Stay tuned. We'll be back there next Monday. Talk to you guys later. Have a great day.